where the Liberals are hopeful of picking up a number of seats. After weeks of using economic modelling to criticise the costs of Labor's climate policies, Mr Morrison says modelling about the economic impact of his own plan is wrong. Political reporter Matthew Doran is travelling with the Prime Minister.
A few days ago in Queensland, the Prime Minister arrived at a similar campaign rally to ACDC's Back in Black. Today, the tune of choice was Hot Shot, and that's because he believes that the Liberals are a red-hot chance of picking up seats here in northern Tasmania. Flanked by his Senate candidates and also Liberal candidates for the 5 electorates here in Tasmania, the PM was keen to continue spruiking his government's economic credentials, warning of the risks that Labor pose should Bill Shorten win the May 18 poll.
It's a choice between a Morrison government, a Liberal government, that has brought the budget back into surplus and is now be paying down Labor's debt, or a Labor Party led by Bill Shorten that we know can't manage money. You know what? Labor can't manage money, and if you can't manage money, you can't run the country.
These campaign launches are set pieces. There's not much scrutiny, if any scrutiny, of the leader who's giving these speeches, and it's not exactly like the crowd's going to turn on them either. It is generally a preaching to the party faithful.
You want to see more jobs here in Tasmania? Do you want to see lower taxes here in Tasmania? Do you want to see more Tasmanians calling Tasmania home? And more mainlanders calling Tasmania home.
But earlier today, the Prime Minister did get some scrutiny about some claims his government has been putting forward about Bill Shorten's cost, or the cost of Bill Shorten's climate policy. The government continues to use modelling that shows how much the climate change policies of Bill Shorten will cost the economy. But the moment anyone has tried to use that same modelling to criticise coalition policy, the Prime Minister says it doesn't apply.
We're not going to have an emissions intensity scheme. We're not going to have a carbon tax. We're not going to have a carbon price. That's not what we're proposing. We are dealing with our emissions reduction by directly purchasing the abatement through the budget, and so that cost of that is $3.5 billion.
One of the local candidates here had the pleasure of introducing the Prime Minister. She made one claim about the coalition's economic fortunes.
This year, for the first time in over a decade, a government that will deliver a budget surplus.
That's not quite right. The Treasurer Josh Frydenberg has forecast a surplus for the next financial year, so the government will have to win the election if it's to deliver. This is the second day Scott Morrison has spent campaigning in northern Tasmania. He's announcing an extra $25 million for local health services. From here, he's expected to head back to Sydney for the Easter weekend, when campaigning will begin to wind down.